Hello everyone, Bertina Amy here, and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are doing 5 Dollar Tree Easter DIYs. Starting first with this DIY Dollar Tree Easter wreath. These are just some of the things that I'm thinking about using for this wreath. I opted against using that sort of fuchsia pink or hot pink tone because I really ended up liking the solid purple lavender color on this wreath once it was full. Taking a 14-inch wreath form from Dollar Tree and just grabbing the rolls of tulle and Dago mesh that I like, I take them out of their packaging and cut them down to size, at first measuring about a little bit longer than the length or width of my hand just to see if that will work, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to be pinching at the rough edges towards the center so that way it has a cleaner cut edge when I attach it. So the length of this isn't really important necessarily. I tried to test out to see if I could use one pipe cleaner and cut it down to 4 pieces, but it's honestly really tight. 3 pieces is the max amount that I would recommend. So I cut down the remaining first roll and attached the pipe cleaners to the center, and then I start attaching it to the second outermost rim of the wreath form. Starting first with the crossbars, all 6 of them, and then attaching and filling in through the sections in between. So here's the first roll attached, the second, the third, the fourth, and the 5th. So the base is now covered with a mix of lavender Dago mesh and lavender speckled tulle. And now it's time to embellish with some florals. I go ahead and select these strong shades of blue and purple because they pop, and I go ahead and remove them from their stems. I go ahead and grab this garland from Dollar Tree and I go ahead and remove the colors that I want. From this garland, I decide to go ahead and use the blues and the pinks to go in between my floral layout. I also picked up a pack of these filler eggs that look the same in the speckled tone, and I also grabbed the pink and the blue because they match the ones on the garland, and I decide to alternate that in between all the florals as well and try to avoid putting the large ones all together. I knew I was going to go ahead and embellish the bottom with this cute little bunny gnome in lavender, and I was thinking about possibly gluing a floral piece to the part of the top of the hat, but I really didn't like the way that looked, and I knew that was kind of mimicking what I did for my St. Patrick's Day wreath. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check it out in my playlist. But either way, I decide to remove it all together, and it's really easy to remove. You just twist it around until it just pops right off. It's just a little round piece of plastic anyways. So once that's done, I go ahead and hot glue the florals and the eggs to my wreath. And once I get to the end, I go ahead and take my remaining purple florals and I decide to attach them kind of on an angle against a little bunny gnome so that I can continue the pattern from around the wreath. Then I go ahead and hot glue him into place, and make sure you get up to a further part of the back so that way he doesn't lean forward. That was the mistake I made with my St. Patrick's Day gnome wreath. So I would go ahead and make sure you get a lot of hot glue to be attached to the Dago mesh and tulle. So since my Dollar Tree didn't carry the bunny wreath form that I was looking for, I decided to go ahead and opt for a headband instead, and I broke the plastic from inside and then cut it down with scissors. And then I attached them with pipe cleaners to my wreath. And if you want this permanent, go ahead and hot glue it down. I wanted options, so I opted against it. Here's the wreath without the bunny ears, and here's the wreath with the bunny ears. Please comment below which is your favorite. This next one is a DIY Dollar Tree Easter centerpiece. So I wanted this to match my wreath, and I saw this cute little pre-made basket with these tiny little eggs. And to start, I thought I would just go ahead and embellish it with florals. I do that first by using the remaining leftover florals from the DIY wreath, and I also grab one of these round floral foams from Dollar Tree, and I go ahead and hot glue the Easter basket to the floral foam. I decided to take the blue florals and just glue them to the sides of the basket so that they pop. And as I glue it, I make sure to actually line up the bottom of the floral with the bottom of the floral foam. Since I had 2 sets each of the blue and purple floral stems, I go ahead and decide to use the remaining leaves that I never used in the wreath and decide to use them as fillers for my DIY centerpiece. I had a very odd number amounts of the florals left. It wasn't going to work out in the pattern that I was hoping for, so I just made the best of it and tried to use every single piece that I could. I'm also trying to be more frugal in my spending and not end up with so many leftovers, so rather than buying more florals, I decided to go with what I had, because more florals would mean I would only need one or two more pieces off of a floral stem, so that just didn't make any sense to me. So I did the best that I could, and normally I like to alternate my florals as best as I can, but since the purple ones ended up with like 4 pieces left, I ended up deciding to glue or attach 2 purple ones next to each other. From my remaining filler eggs from the previous project, I decided to use these purple ones to tie in the same style into it, and also to help break up a little bit of the, I guess, monotony of the florals or something like that, and I think it looks really nice. I then used the remaining bits of leaves left from the floral stems and try to add more color to the back of this basket. I also used the remaining leaves to try to cover up any gaps in between the florals and leaves on the floral foam. Now I think this would look great as a centerpiece on its own, or even decorative on a wall, or you can actually set it inside this DIY Dollar Tree photo frame box. I threw the remaining leaves in the corners and in the center and just set my centerpiece inside, and that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The next is a DIY Dollar Tree Easter painting. So I take this very flat 8x10 canvas from Dollar Tree, and I also go ahead and create my own Easter bunny coloring page using Canva, and I print that out and place it over some carbon paper so that I could trace it over my canvas. I just make sure to use a pencil and press down firmly and go through all the lines, and then once done, I trace it with a Sharpie. And as a bit of foreshadowing, I actually show and introduce my little pen pals. I've got a St. Patrick's Day one I made and a cute Easter bunny one. If you don't have any access to any carbon paper, you can just cover the back of your design with pencil and follow the same steps. And in tracing my design, I happen to have missed some spots, so I just eyeball it and fill in what's missing. You can for sure go back over it, however, you might be concerned about lining it up properly. So what I recommend doing is that you cut out the sections that you need tracing over and just trace over that design. I hope that makes sense. It'll be easier to line up, I think. And once the design is outlined, then go ahead and take some watercolor and paint over the entire painting using the colors of your choice. I thought watercolor was especially appropriate for the egg because when you dye eggs, they tend to look a little bit more like watercolor to me, so let me know what you think in the comments below. So while you don't have to do this exactly the way I'm doing it, I decided to cover my entire bunny gnome with a sort of a pink shade. So I did get a larger pack of this watercolor kit from Target, and you can get all sorts of shades, pink is included, and I just set it inside my smaller kit because I was running out of red anyways. But basically I used that to paint my entire bunny gnome because I know I was going to add other layers to it, either with watercolor or some other media. After painting the sky a blue watercolor, I take some purple watercolor and just paint in some areas of the sky and also within my gnome's hat in alternating strips, and that way it gives it some more color. Once dry, I go ahead and grab some colors in my Ohuhu markers and add in some detailed designs in the hat, the outfit, and I go ahead and add designs to the colored egg as well. You can feel free to add a second tone to the opposite side of the egg if you wanted instead, because that's gonna look a lot like a natural colored egg. This is totally customizable. I then take some shade of green and add in some lines to make some more green grass. Then grab my white paint and go ahead and water it down and add in some white paint in the areas for the sky, as well as within the bunny's ears and facial hair. Then I do some touch-ups with my black Sharpie just to go over the black lines over again. You can set this inside of an 8x10 picture frame from Dollar Tree, and that's it for this project. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This next project is a DIY Easter gnome pen pal. Now, as a heads up, the only things from this project that are from Dollar Tree are the ears, the nose, and the socks used to create the outfit for this bunny gnome. I just take a 1-inch wooden spool and a 1-inch wooden ball cap, and I just hot glue them together. I picked up these pink fluffy socks from the Dollar Tree and removed the packaging, and I just trim off a little bit just to cover the spool part of my bunny gnome, and I go ahead and cut it so that it has basically like a strip instead of a loop. and I go ahead and glue one side and then just wrap it and glue the other end once I'm happy with the thickness. As you can see, I actually do glue along the way as well, which I do recommend. Once it's completely wrapped, go ahead and trim off the excess off the bottom. You can see it looks really thick right now, but don't worry, it's going to look better once you're done. So I go ahead and trim off the excess. Then I grab this scrap bit of yarn I still have. I used it for a previous project, never used the entire roll, so I still have plenty of it. And I decided to make this the Easter bunny gnome hair. I cut off a generous amount of yarn that I'll need, and I decided to go ahead and braid it because I thought that would look cute for this gnome. To help keep the braid in place, I use these little rubber bands from the Dollar Tree. It says scunchie, or I'm used to calling it scrunchie. Anyways, go ahead and use that to tie off any areas you need to for your braided hair, if you're doing braided hair, or just do pigtails. Then I went ahead and hot glued it to the top of the head where I decided to have the front of the face and stuff like that, so it's totally up to you where you decide you want to glue it down. For the nose, they have these really small wooden beads at Dollar Tree, so I just used one of those, glued it in place with the holes facing upwards and downwards. Then I take the sock and go ahead and cut out another section, and I go ahead and start creating the gnome hat to the top head of the gnome. And I basically just cut out some kind of a triangular shape, making sure to glue the edges but leaving an opening at the bottom of the hat. Or just simply cut the bottom to make sure that there is an opening for the bottom of your hat. Then I go ahead and glue the hat on. So while I tried to work out what I was going to do to fix the hat, I decided to go ahead and trim off the excess length of the braids and go ahead and add the scrunchy ties to the bottom. And also I do one at the top of the hat because I thought it would look cute to make it look like it has a little ball there. And then I take excess yarn and go ahead and use that to make a little bow, fuzzy bow at the top of the hat. I hope that makes sense, but I think that looks cute. So unfortunately, I didn't make the bottom of this hat with a wide enough opening for my gnome because I really need to cover up this nose. So what I decided to do is that since I still had to add the ears on anyways, I had actually made these cute little ears using Dollar Tree bunny ears from a different old pack from last year, and I pinched them in the center so they looked more folded. But I go ahead and take those, cut them out, and I attach them to some thin strip of this sock. And I use that sock piece to kind of make a brim at the edge of the hat and use that to kind of, in a sense, extend the look of the hat so that I could cover up that hole of the bead. After some trial and error, I realized I actually had to cut those ears out instead of leaving them on the top part of the head of those stickers, and then just glue them between the brim and the actual hat so that way it adheres better and it doesn't feel all like stiff. The added glued brim over top will help keep those ears in place as well. So I go ahead and add that in and make sure that the seam is towards the back. Then, last but not least, I have found that the only pens that will work for these pen pals are these Papermate pens, the ones that have the ends at the back where they kind of get thinner, and those can be inserted into the opening of the spool. I was debating whether or not I should add this cute little carrot that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Let me know in the comments below which of these ideas is your favorite, with or without the carrot. Okay, last but not least is the DIY Dollar Tree personalized Easter basket. So last year I made this DIY basket using Dollar Tree's purple wicker basket, and I used these felt sheets I used to sell last year, and I took the purple, the green, and the blue, and I cut them down into about 1-inch strips going all the way down from the long end. Then I hot glued them into a pattern surrounding my entire basket. I used the purple gingham bunnies to cover up my side seams, and I then took this pack of bunny butts and I decided to upgrade their feet to these felt sticker sheets that they sold last year, and they came in a pack of pink, blue, and purple, and I really wanted to go with the purple theme for my daughter, so I decided to use the purple one, but I upgrade all these butts with the bigger and cuter bunny feet. I picked up a couple of these cute bunny headbands they had last year, which they also have this year, and I decided to take off the bunny ears and recreate them, and I wish I had known that I could just break them on the inside with the plastic and then cut them off with my scissors. I hadn't thought of that till this year, but regardless, I removed the ears off of the headbands and I decided to turn them into flexible ears because I really wanted that ability with the basket. I also really wanted the inside part of the part that's not the fur to be a purple color rather than pink or blue. So I decided to remove the pink gingham and replace it with purple felt that I had excess of because I bought one of those rolls of purple felt. I also go ahead and cut out a strip to line the inside of the basket, and cut out circles to line the inside with the purple felt as well as the outside. And I actually do it twice for the outside because I wasn't satisfied with how large the circle was, so I decided to recreate it a second time and then glue over top the existing one there. For the inside liner, I go ahead and cover up the seams with the gingham bunnies. Then I use this lavender ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I use it to wrap the entire handle. Then I glue the ears into a little pouch I create from between the fabric and the basket, and then I glue the bunny butt on the back. And then that leads us to today. So I have a couple of ideas on how to personalize this, and I start by grabbing a bunch of scrap items, including 100% cotton fabric, these square wooden beads from Dollar Tree that they came in the wreath and I kind of undid it, or you might be able to find them in a package, and I wasn't able to find it at the time that I purchased this, so I'm using this. And I take off enough of these beads just to spell out my daughter's name, and I also go ahead and cut a little slit into the cotton fabric I selected, and I just tear it and rip it until I get a size and shape that I want. I also have my black ink pad and my letter stamps. I also decided to give my wood beads a bit of color and just take some color shift paint, put it in some cup and add some water to it, mix it up a little bit, and I go ahead and paint my beads. You can select any color you wish. I do recommend watering it down so that the ink will show up well over top. While the beads go ahead and dry, I go ahead and spell out my daughter's name on the scrap cotton fabric that I tore up. I go ahead and tear up a section off the edge so that it's kind of more even on either side, and then I cut off any excess strings that are kind of dangling from it. Then I played around with some arrangement of ideas with maybe adding ribbon to the sides and things like that, but I wasn't really satisfied. Then I had this idea that you could just go ahead and glue the name to the bottom of the basket if you're doing the cotton fabric route. Or instead you could have it say something like handmade with love or love mom or whatever at the bottom of the basket as well. Then I decide I'm going to go ahead and actually make this a personalized tassel that gets attached to the basket. So since I have excess purple felt, I go ahead and use that for the backing of the name tag I created. And then I grab this scrap bit of lace that I had lying around, and I decide to add that to either side to give it a nice, more finished look. Then I decide to glue all the pieces together. I take a small bit of scrap felt fabric so that I can adhere it to the back, and then that way I'm not getting hot glue onto my fingers. And this really skinny purple ribbon that I have, I go ahead and make a simple bow with it by first creating the tails and then making sure I have it laid out the way I want over my sort of tag. And then I make the loops, and I decided to make 3 loops for this. So I just make one big circle, glue it together in the center, if that makes sense. So it makes like 2 loops for either side of a bow. And then I repeat that process 3 times and make sure they're all the same, about approximately the same length. And then I attach them all together with another ribbon in the center of the 3 of them so that looks like one large bow, or skinny bow rather. Then I go ahead and make sure that the tails are glued on and then the bow is glued on top of that, and then that's the end of that tag. Then I cut the tails to make sure that it has a finished look. I had bought this really cute bow ribbon from the baby section, and I decided to use this as a way to get my tag to pop. So I decided to actually use it to try to create sort of a headband around the top part of my basket. And unfortunately it's a little too small for it because it's intended for a newborn according to its packaging, and I was only able to get it around the handle part as well as the top part of the front part of the basket. But I go ahead and use it that way anyway. I wanted the bow to be off to the side. So this did take some finagling, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it permanently this way, and that's why I didn't just cut the headband down so that I could glue the remaining part to the opposite side of the back end of the basket, if that makes sense. So it's totally up to you if you wanted to do it that way. I am deciding to actually get another headband just like it and then put the other remaining half on, if that makes sense, but then I'm just going to remove the bow from the headband. So now that the beads are dry, I go ahead and just use my stamp kit and add letters to the beads for the letters that I actually need, spelling out my daughter's name, Everly. And the E I originally put on before deciding to paint the wood, so I just carefully line it up and then put it on there. Then with this scrap bit of string I got from my baby shower, I go ahead and just string them through the wooden beads. I did have to add hot glue to the ends just so that it had a better point, and I was able to string through it that way. I did my letters vertically, but you could certainly do it horizontally. Once I was satisfied, I went ahead and tied a knot at the bottom, and then I strung it through on the side of the handle. I added hot glue to my knots so that they wouldn't come out fraying, cut the excess, and that's how I personalized this without a Cricut, and that's the end of the project. Let me know in the comments below which of these personalized ways is your favorite. I really love the way that this turned out, and I hope my daughter will too. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.